Isla Monroe stood before the towering glass facade of Somerset Gallery, her fingers clutching her sketchbook to her chest like a fragile shield. She was 19, fresh out of art school, now facing the epicenter of the city's art world with quiet trepidation. The building of steel and glass rose like a proud glacier in the middle of downtown. Inside, the artworks were displayed like sacred treasures, solemn, priceless, and distant. Isla felt like a smudge in a world drawn in perfect lines. She never imagined a single glance could make time falter. But when Damien Hale, founder and director of Somerset Gallery, entered the exhibition space, the air shifted instantly. Tall, refined, and so cold it seemed emotions were something he'd abandoned long ago. And yet, when his eyes happened to pass over her, Isla felt something flicker. Just a spark, faint but real, as if the first crack had formed in an unbreakable sheet of ice. Damien Hale entered the gallery space as if the room itself adjusted its breath to accommodate him. No one spoke. No one dared to hold his gaze for too long. Light reflected off his perfectly tailored black suit, and his gray eyes swept across the space, sharp as a blade, cold as marble. Isla stood behind the information desk, trying to make herself small, as though she could disappear into the white wall behind her. But within seconds, Damien's eyes passed over her. Not long, not warmly, just a flicker, yet enough to still her heartbeat. In the days that followed, Isla worked quietly, updating files, cataloging new acquisitions, jotting precise notes in her sketchbook. Damien was ever present, like a silent force, inspecting every detail, giving instructions in an even, no-nonsense tone that left no room for reply. One quiet afternoon, Isla sat alone in a corner of the gallery, eating lunch and scribbling in her notebook. Out of habit, she sketched. A statue from the exhibit with light casting sideways over its shoulder. "You're not supposed to sit here." The voice startled her so sharply that her notebook slipped from her hands. She turned. Damien was there, hands in pockets, face unreadable. I'm sorry," she stammered, bending to retrieve it. He picked it up before she could. Flipping through a few pages, he saw notes interspersed with sketches, quiet, expressive lines filled with emotion. He drawled. It wasn't a question. "Just doodles," Isla murmured. "It helps me connect with the pieces." He remained silent for a moment, then handed the book back to her. "Use the upstairs lounge next time, it's quieter." Then he walked away, leaving behind the faint scent of sandalwood and an unspoken shift within Isla, the first ripple in a sea of distance. Isla didn't expect anything to come from that brief exchange. She assumed it was nothing more than a passing courtesy. But she was wrong. The next day, as she was inventorying a new sculpture, Damien walked past and paused. No greeting, no direct glance, just a quiet remark. The light from the left would bring out the lines of that piece better. She looked up, startled, but he was already moving on, leaving her heart racing behind him. Gradually, small, deliberate moments began to unfold between them, each one a soft brushstroke on a canvas neither had dared to begin. A comment, a glance, a question that seemed almost rhetorical, but somehow directed only at her. One afternoon, as Isla stepped out for lunch, she noticed an elderly woman struggling with her cane caught in a storm drain. Without thinking, she rushed to help. Just as she nearly freed the cane, a familiar voice sounded behind her. "Do you want me to call a cab for her?" Isla turned. Damien stood there. His voice was softer than usual, stripped of its usual chill. He helped the woman with ease, as if kindness was second nature rather than something to be seen. Once the car pulled away, he looked at Isla. His eyes met hers, just for a beat. "You're not like the others here." She smiled gently. "I just thought someone should help." Damien didn't reply at first. Then, almost under his breath, he said, "Kindness is a weakness in this world." "No," she answered firmly. "It's the only thing that truly makes us strong." He looked at her again, longer this time, as if trying to make sense of something that didn't fit into the world he had carefully constructed. That Thursday, as golden light spilled across the gallery's glass walls, Isla was reorganizing exhibition files when Damien appeared behind her, silent as ever. "There's an art auction this Saturday," he said, voice calm, as if assigning her any other task. "I'd like you to come. As my personal assistant." Ira blinked, her heart skipping. "Me? But I don't have anything appropriate to wear for something like that." He didn't answer right away, just gave a slight nod. "Maria will be at your place tomorrow afternoon. She'll handle everything." Then he left, leaving her heart pounding, unsure if she was dreaming or simply losing control. The next afternoon, just as promised, Maria, Damien's personal assistant, arrived at Isla's modest apartment carrying several designer bags. "Mr. Hale picked everything himself," she said with a knowing smile. "He said, elegant, not ostentatious, sophisticated, but not distant." Inside was a deep sapphire silk dress, so fluid and delicate that Isla trembled just touching it. On Saturday evening, a sleek black car waited outside. When the door opened and Damien stepped out in a sharp tuxedo, Isla knew this night would be more than just an auction. She stepped out, radiant in the gown, her hair falling in soft waves. His eyes found hers the moment she appeared. "You," Damien began, then fell silent. "You could say, presentable," Isla offered, trying to ease the weight in the air. "No," he said, his voice lower than usual. "Perfect." For the first time, Isla saw something in his eyes beyond the cold, something startled, and something infinitely more fragile. The auction took place in a historic hotel at the heart of the city, where crystal chandeliers cast their glow onto canvases that seemed to whisper the stories of each artist. Isla walked beside Damien, trying not to lose step in a world full of polished power and dazzling smiles. In that world, Damien was a different man. He spoke fluently, eyes sharp, and people listened as if every word he said carried weight. Yet amid handshakes and poised laughter, his gaze kept returning to Isla, as if her presence anchored him in a sea of performance. Midway through the event, they found themselves standing before a painting of a sunrise over a crumbling rooftop. Isla whispered, "It feels sad, but hopeful." Damien didn't look at the painting. He looked at her. "That was where I grew up," he said after a long pause. "An orphanage. There was nothing beautiful about it, but one teacher gave me a box of paints, and for the first time, I saw color in the world." Isla turned to him. It was the first time he spoke of a past that wasn't polished. "Is that why you built the gallery?" "The gallery is a business," he said, though his expression betrayed the words. "At least, that's what I've told myself." After the auction ended, they rode back in silence, not the cold kind, but heavy with something real. As the car stopped in front of her apartment, Damien spoke suddenly. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow?" "Not as my assistant." Isla looked up, her heart stopping mid-beat. "Yes," she whispered. "I'd love to." The next evening, Isla arrived at Damien's penthouse. There were no butlers, no guests, just him and a space bathed in warm light. He wore a white shirt, sleeves rolled, preparing dinner in the kitchen. "You cook?" Isla asked, surprised. "Sometimes," he said, a trace of a smile. "But never for anyone else." They ate quietly, talking about art, books, and sad music. And for the first time, Isla saw Damien truly laugh. In that moment, she realized, behind all the control was a man who once loved, once hurt, and was now learning to feel again. After dinner, he led her to the second floor, to a studio filled with unfinished canvases. One stood covered in cloth. "You still paint?" Isla whispered. "I used to," he replied, "but I stopped long ago. Painting demands honesty, and for years I locked mine away like a color I was afraid to use." He pulled off the cloth. It revealed a half-finished portrait, a woman laughing in the sunlight. His ex-wife. "I couldn't finish it. When she left, I thought I lost my ability to feel." Isla stepped closer. "I think it's still there, in every brushstroke." He turned to her. "Maybe, or maybe you're the first person who's made it come alive again." And in that silence, the first kiss came, soft as watercolor, deep as memory, and warm as morning light. The next morning, Isla woke in a bed that was unfamiliar yet warm, sunlight slipping through the curtains like a gentle whisper. On the nightstand beside her was her sketchbook, open to the page where she had drawn Damien's profile in the soft glow of last night. But Damien was gone. The penthouse was unnaturally quiet. No footsteps, no clinking cups, no scent of morning coffee. She called his name, but the only reply was silence. In the kitchen, a single cup of coffee sat cold on the counter, as if someone had begun their routine and abruptly walked away. There was no note, no message, no sign. Isla pulled her phone from her coat pocket. One email. From Maria, Damien's assistant. Mr. Hale has left the city on urgent business. The gallery will operate as usual in his absence. Not a single personal word, not even an explanation. A chill ran down Isla's spine. She dressed quietly, picked up her sketchbook, and stepped out of the penthouse like someone walking through the remnants of a dream. Everything from the night before, the touches, the kiss, the words, now felt like a delicate illusion unraveling with the dawn. She returned to her small apartment, sitting for hours before a blank page, unable to draw a single line. She wasn't angry, she wasn't even sad. Just hollow, a quiet ache spreading across her chest. That evening, when her phone buzzed, she expected nothing, but seeing the sender's name, her breath caught. Damien Hale. The message was short, almost hesitant. I don't know how to face what I'm feeling, but I do know this. I don't want to lose it. She read it over and over again. It wasn't an apology, it wasn't a promise, but it was honest. And sometimes, truth is the only thing we need to not turn away. The next day, Isla didn't respond right away. She sat with the silence, torn between hurt and something she still couldn't name. Eventually, she replied with just one sentence. The most valuable art is the one we're afraid to create. His reply came almost immediately. How can you understand me so deeply when I don't even understand myself? She smiled softly. Because sometimes love means understanding without explanation. That evening, a car appeared outside Isla's modest apartment. No promises, no flowers, just Damien. His expression changed. No longer cold, no longer guarded. There's a place I want to show you, he said. The car took them beyond the city center, along dark, quiet roads, until it stopped in front of an old building covered in vibrant murals. Over the gate, painted words read, "The Hale Center, Art and Shelter for Children." "This is where I grew up," Damien said quietly. "It used to be an orphanage. Now, it's something I rebuilt. For kids who were once like me." Isla stepped inside, struck by the spontaneous art, the warmth of yellow lights, paintings scattered across walls, and laughter echoing down hallways. Children ran to Damien, hugging him, calling his name like family. She had never seen him like this, gentle, alive, undeniably human. In a small studio at the end of the corridor, Damien pointed to an old, faded painting, a boy holding a paintbrush, eyes full of longing. "My first painting. A teacher kept it all these years." Isla turned to him. "Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" "Because this place is the softest part of me, and I didn't think I could share it. But now I know, if anyone deserves to see it, it's you." A few weeks later, Somerset Gallery reopened for its new exhibition, no longer a cold display of power and control, but a canvas alive with raw emotion. At the center of the gallery stood a massive painting, two hands intertwined, holding a single paintbrush, the strokes unfinished but full of life. In the corner, two signatures, I, Monroe, and D. Hale. The guests murmured, but Damien simply stood beside Isla, their hands clasped. "This is how I wanted to tell our story," Isla whispered. "There's no more beautiful way," Damien replied. That evening, as the lights dimmed and only the soft glow remained on the canvas, Damien leaned in and whispered against her ear, "I've spent my life collecting art, but you're the only masterpiece that's ever made me want to create something eternal. The applause for the central painting had barely faded when the atmosphere in the gallery shifted. The sharp click of high heels echoed across the marble floor. The unmistakable arrival of someone Damien had tried hard to forget. Victoria Langford, his ex-wife, stepped into the space with chilling grace. Her crimson gown sliced through the serenity of the exhibit like a wound. "So the rumors are true," she said, her eyes settling on Isla beside Damien. "An assistant? How wonderfully naive of you, Damien." The room fell silent. Guests held their breath. Isla said nothing, her shoulders tense, but she didn't lower her gaze. Damien stepped forward. "She's not my assistant," he said calmly, but with unwavering certainty. "She's the reason I started painting again, the reason I believe art still matters." Victoria laughed, a brittle sound like cracked glass. "You're risking your entire reputation for a student?" "No," Damien said, turning to Isla. "I'm not risking anything. I'm reclaiming what I lost long ago. A reason to feel. Someone to create something real with." And then he did something he never had before. He took Isla's hand, in front of everyone, openly, unapologetically. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but Isla heard only one thing: the beat of Damien's heart beside her. In that moment, surrounded by light and canvas, past and present, she knew this was where they belonged. Not as a hero and a muse, but as two artists, painting life together in their truest colors. After Victoria left, taking the shadow of the past with her, the gallery once again filled with light and life. Damien turned to Isla, holding her hand tightly. No more trembling, no more distance, just a sacred stillness between them, as if the world had stepped back to make space for this one moment. "There's something I want to show you," he whispered, guiding her to a small display pedestal tucked away behind the main exhibit, a place no spotlight touched. Atop it sat a dark wooden box. Damien opened it. Inside was an old paintbrush, its wooden handle worn with time. "This was the first brush my teacher gave me at the orphanage," he said softly. "He told me that one day I'd find something, someone worth painting for the rest of my life." Then Damien knelt, not like a gentleman in society, but like an artist offering his whole heart. Isla Monroe, his voice trembled slightly. "Would you create a life with me, not just in color, but in love, truth, and courage?" Isla didn't speak. Her tears fell silently. Then she nodded. Without hesitation, she took the brush from his hands, holding it close to her chest like a vow. The room erupted in applause. But for the two of them, there was only one sound that mattered: the shared rhythm of their hearts, promising to paint a masterpiece that would never be finished, because it would be created together, day after day. The wedding took place in the small garden behind Somerset Gallery, the same place where their first glance and their first sketch were exchanged. It wasn't extravagant, but it was a dream crafted by hand, literally. Isla wore a wedding dress she had designed and painted herself, every detail inspired by light and brushwork. Damien's suit was based on her sketches too. Clean lines, soft tones like oil on canvas, shaped by ideas they dreamed up together. When they exchanged vows, no one cried, but everyone fell silent, as if watching a masterpiece receive its final perfect stroke. Their life afterward was simple, but whole. Dinners with wine and candlelight in the studio, laughter echoing over pages stained with color, and quiet mornings spent painting side by side. No words, just understanding. 5 years later, in a sun-drenched wooden house wrapped in blooms, Damien and Isla sat on the front steps, fingers intertwined. Two curly-made twin girls, Aurora and Elia, toddled across the yard, dresses stained with grass, tiny hands smudged in paint. Isla smiled. Damien did too. They needed nothing more. Not when their masterpiece now called them Mom and Dad. Because everything they had ever dreamed of was right there, alive under the sunlight, carried by two small, unstoppable footsteps.